Hi, I'm Katie and this is the 18th episode of Ornamentations. Today I have some updates on past finishes that have been newly embellished, a new finish to show you, and some past springtime stitches for the season. I will also be revealing the prize for the second finish of a completed Simple Harmony box, since in the last episode we saw the prize for the first finish of a Simple Harmony box, which is this posy. And with that, we will start by looking at the hot topic from the last episode, which was the fate of the drum, aka my stitch of Artful Offerings Cranberry Christmas. There were overwhelming votes in the comments to save the drum. I was actually pretty surprised. Also, we have some display artists because there were some fabulous suggestions on ways to display the drum and things you could do to integrate it and make it look less like a pillar candle, a box of Quaker Oats, or a roll of paper towels, to name some of the analogies that showed up. They were all very clever points to the commenters. But I was ultimately swayed when I was editing the episode together and inserting the photo of the blocked finish before it was assembled into the drum. Seeing it laid out all together and being able to see the entire design made me realize how much I did like seeing that. So although there was nothing wrong on a technical level with the finishing of the drum, I did in fact ultimately take it apart and redo it as a pillow, and I'm very glad that I did, because I think that this stitch is best appreciated in this format. It is, I think, a final finish. I don't have any plans currently to add any embellishment or edging to the pillow. I think that the kind of restrained nature of this stitch looks best just in this simple format, but you should tell me what you think. Does it need more? And also, pressing question, pillow or drum? Which ultimately do you like best, having seen them both? I'm firmly on team pillow here, but given all the drum advocates we had in the last episode, I will be interested to hear your thoughts now that you've seen what I did do with it. I do love reading your comments, just as a general note. It makes it feel less like me talking to myself alone in a room and more like a conversation between stitchy friends. So please keep your comments coming because I love reading them. And then so I had been waiting for some supplies to come in so I could embellish some of the finishes, which were just plain pillows in episode 15, A Feast of Finishes. The first of which was Brenda Gervais' Burr, It's Cold Outside. And this is what I have been doing with it. So this is a 4mm round trim in a wonderful color called Crystal Golden Shadow, and I wanted a tan trim rather than a crystal one, which might have been the more obvious one here, so that it could pick up the like coppery tan notes, which I think are some of my favorite things about this. However, while the trim itself I think is just spectacularly beautiful, and I love the trim in isolation, actually on the pillow I think that it is utterly swamping the design, and I'm inclined to take this off, save the trim. Obviously I'm not taking it apart because it's gorgeous, it just needs a different project, and then perhaps experimenting with the next technique that I am about to show you. So votes on Burr, It's Cold Outside. Keep the trim, new trim, no trim. What are your thoughts? But some unequivocally successful embellishments I had were on Mary and Minty. So ever since Brenda posted her finish, well, Joy's finish of Hands Across the Sea, Annie Morris, with the beaded looped picot thing that I keep talking about. I've been obsessed and wanted to try it for myself, which I finally did. These are 2mm crystal moonlight rounds on my finish of Mary Minty, which I have now decided to call beaded looped edging, because saying beaded looped picot-y whatever things sounds ridiculous. So beaded looped edging is what I've decided to call it. And I liked it so much that I used it in red on Brenda Gervais' Home for Christmas, which I think you can see better. See, oh, isn't that awesome? It's just detailed but subtle and sparkly and delightful. I love this. And so the formula for a 2mm round is 3 beads for every 3/8 of an inch. I'll put that in the description below. And again, if you're interested in the details of these stitches, threads, linen used, those are all in the description for episode 15, A Feast of Finishes. And I will definitely be experimenting more with this style of edging treatment, because you could get very different looks depending on the size and type of bead used. So I hope you're ready to see more of the beaded looped edging, because I'm really into it and I will definitely be doing more of it. So those are my jazzed up finishes, and with that we will move on to my new finish. So last time I was working on Harietta and Company, and I do have a finish, and this is my finish. So I used all silks, and the fabric is Legacy Linen Brewer's Malt. And I've just got a little chenille edging here. And then I also used a wonderful thread called Silk Wrapped Gimp for the bow detail on the bunny. She used Floss, but I thought that Silk Wrapped Gimp gave a rather more finished and delicate look, which is why I used it. And I did actually film a very short little tutorial on embellishing your cross stitch with Silk Wrapped Gimp, and talking about the different types that are available, and that will be up next week. That is not, by the way, a substitute for the coming specialty thread tutorial, which I am in the planning stages on. I did get some specific questions recently, which was incredibly helpful. If there are things you want to know about specialty threads, please tell me, because giving me specifics helps me plan a better tutorial that will be more useful to you. So this is Harietta and Company, who I think is just like springy and charming, and I definitely inherited my mother's love of bunnies. And then these are my threads, which, these are my threads, which I will be posting in the description below. All silk, mostly Gobelins, and then I'd like to draw your attention to one color of 103 in particular, which is 718, one of my favorite greens. And it's one of my favorite greens, and one that we'll be talking about in future, actually next episode as well, because it's flexible. So this exact spool, so we're not talking about dye lot changes here, was used on 2 finishes that you've seen already in this episode. Harietta and Company, where it is the vine edging border thing around the edge. I have issues. And then Cranberry Christmas, where it is the dominant green. But they give a very different effect, or at least I think they do when I'm looking at them in person. The gray content in 718 leaps much more strongly to the fore in Harietta and Company, because of the differences in the ground and in the surrounding colors. And a lot of people don't necessarily choose their own colors, but I think color is an important discussion for all stitchers, because it helps you understand why a certain color isn't working. Say if you changed your ground and you need to adapt because something's ghosting or it's not working with the other colors. That's why the discussion of color and understanding why it behaves the way it does is so important, because color isn't actually a fixed point. It's affected by everything else around it. So even though this is the exact same thread used from the same spool, same kind of thread, same color, it's the same thread. It gives two, well, not gives two different looks. You see different things in the green in the two different settings. Or at least I think you do. You may be watching this and thinking, oh my God, this girl is crazy. But the nuances of color are something that really interests me. And this isn't the last time we'll be talking about 718. It is a favorite. And in its perlé form, it features in the next episode, which hopefully you'll want to watch after listening to this. I hope you'll want to watch, because I think next episode is going to be really fun. But we'll get away from Katie's color obsessions for a second and take a look at some past springtime finishes. These are largely things that I made for my mom for Mother's Day, because although I don't decorate for spring, she does. There are lots of bunnies in our house this time of year, and I like making little things for her for Mother's Day. My mom is the most gratifying person in the world to make things for, because she is so wonderfully appreciative. She loved my terrible little drawings when I was a kid, and now that I'm an adult, she thinks my creations are just the cat's meow. So this is a Cheswick Company kit. It's a little mohair chick wearing a kind of sunflowery felt cape-like thing. I don't know, but he's adorable, and he stands up on her bookcases this time of year. And then this is another Cheswick Company that I made for her for Mother's Day some years ago. And yes, this is a mouse riding a duck. I don't know why the mouse is taking a ride on a duck. That's kind of weird, but I stitched it and gave it to my mom as a gift. So maybe I'm just weird, because I thought this was adorable and cute. And this lives on my mom's dining table at this time of year. And then something that she made for me are her little bunnies. She's got a set herself, which are out on display. And then this is the one she made for me. They're just warm and natural with little stitched faces on them and kind of felty jackety things. So normally these would live on my bookcases, and you'll see them in the next episode behind me, but I took them down to show you today. And then the last springtime stitch I have to show you today was my mother's gift to my mom in 2020. Weird time in our lives. And this is the Just Nan Queen of the Needle Mouse. And when I am holding her up, she doesn't really like to stay. So I'm just going to show you Queen of the Needle Mouse. And then show you the cube that she sits on. And it's in my little kingdom of stitches that cross. I'm Queen of the Needle, still boss of the floss, and it's got all these lovely flowers and kind of spring colors on it. So my mom keeps this out with her spring things rather than year-round in her sewing room, because really she's Queen of the Needle 365 days a year, but this is classed as a spring decoration in her world. So this is all called for 32 count DMC 2/2, and kind of a good example of why I don't like doing it, because my 2/2 is always a mess. I really prefer working one strand over two on higher counts, just because it's easier and my stitches look a lot neater. So those are some past spring stitches, and with that we will get on to Simple Harmony updates. So last episode I announced the first prize for the first completed finish of Simple Harmony box, which is this fabulous posy. And for today, I have the second prize, which has been generously donated by Access Commodities, and it is a Soie Gobelins thread palette, which somebody really has to claim stat, or I'm really going to be tempted to keep this for myself because check out those colors. There are a few in here actually that I didn't have, and I've been kind of like wiggling around the spools trying to read the numbers so I can make sure I have all of these, because there are some standout colors in here. So Soie Gobelins Thread Pack is the prize for the second completed finish of the Simple Harmony box, and I will be showing the third prize in the next episode, where we will be looking at some ongoing whips, and I will be getting back to my Christmas stitching because I'm really not a seasonal decorating person. I'm all about Christmas, so I'm getting back to my do just a little bit of Christmas every day, and I've got my threads ready in my little Kiana case for the next project. Everybody seen Nicola's Instagram post of her own, which is red, over the weekend? I was like, oh, I feel really cool now. So I've got mine all ready to go. I'm getting back to just a little bit of Christmas stitching so that I can have all of the finishes next year. I'm already excited for Christmas because I'm a crazy person. And Simple Harmony. Losing my train of thought. So all of the tutorials are now up, and you have everything that you need to finish your Simple Harmony box. There are a few questions that have come up that I would like to address, just because I feel like, you know, if 3 people email you the same question, there are probably several more out there who have the same question. And the first one is on blocking. So in the last episode, I inserted a photo of this piece while it was still on the blocking board, and in that the stitching was face up, but in the tutorial I had told you to block embroidery down. That was specific to Simple Harmony. So when you are applying glued backing paper to your embroidery, you want your embroidery to be under tension. So you block face down so that you can just glue while it's still taut. If you are blocking for a stitched finish, like with the Cranberry Christmas, you can block face up so you can actually see your embroidery. The other thing I did there that you may note is I had basted in an outline around all 4 edges to give me straight lines so I could see them, because there wasn't an obvious border on this piece. If you are blocking a sampler for framing, for example, that's a great thing to do to give you clear lines that you can see. Makes your blocking job easier. And I do really recommend blocking if you're ever doing your own framing, because if you rely solely on lacing, it tends to lead to you overstretching your fabric. And this can be the case even if you're not trying to block out distortion and get all your lines smooth. And I have an example of that for you today. So this is a past teaching sample, and this was actually worked on a slate frame under full tension, so I didn't have any distortion to lace out when I was doing the lacing job. This was just one of my earliest lacing jobs. I was inexperienced. I made some mistakes, and the primary mistake here was that I overstretched my fabric, which led to pulling. So I'm not sure how much this is honestly going to show up. It's one of the issues with filming. The things you can see in person don't always show up on the camera, but there are little pull points here because I was overstretching my fabric, and they line up perfectly with my pinholes. It was everywhere. So it is in fact possible to stretch your fabric too much. It's more obvious with silk satin because it shows up in the shine of the weave, but you can do it just as easily on linen. And if you're really lacing and pulling tightly to try and get distortion out of your lines, you are really going to end up overstretching your fabric, which is one reason why it's so important to block first in any kind of finish, but especially if you're framing. So that's on blocking. And then the second point that has come up is on backing paper. So I have recommended German engrais paper, which is made by Zircol if you're outside the US and looking for a supplier. And it is only suitable for backing cross stitch. If you are doing surface embroidery, or specifically if you are a Cabinet of Curiosities student, you need to use the handmade laid paper sold by Thistle Threads. Engrais paper is not a substitute for it. It's thinner. So paper serves two purposes if you are backing your embroidery. One, it protects your embroidery from the toxicity of the wood, the box that you're gluing it to. Secondly, it cushions the back of your stitching. It helps absorb the bulk on your back and give you a smooth and even finish when it's applied to the box. And with cross stitch, there's very little bulk on the back. It's practically non-existent, which is why you can get away with using a thinner paper like the engrais paper. If you are doing surface embroidery, especially if you are doing stump work, you need the extra absorbency that the thicker paper gives you. And I don't have an alternate suggestion on paper, because if I am not going cross stitch, I use the Thistle Threads paper myself, and I don't look elsewhere for a substitute. It was engineered by Trisha for this specific purpose, so I use it. And why you need that to absorb the bulk on the back of your stitching is something that we will actually be looking at in the next episode, because I will be showing you the back of an ongoing whip as well as the front, because with surface embroidery, all the secrets lie on the back, and it can really be quite striking. So those are just a couple notes, a couple questions that have come up with the tutorials. If you do have questions, reach out. It's better that you ask rather than struggle alone. And you know, there are things that I have missed in the tutorials. I am only human. Also, Tim, winner of Helen Stevens World of Embroidery, please contact me to claim your prize. Otherwise, I will redraw for the next episode. And then the last thing I have today is just a little bit of haul. So like many people, I had a lot of fun with the Great Floss Drop Trade and received a lot of amazing floss drops from around the world, and my organization of them was a complete and utter mess. But salvation came in the form of Rifle Paper Company. This is one of their recipe boxes, which I have repurposed to organize my floss drops. So they actually came with little dividers that have, you know, food things on them, but I just flipped them over and wrote categories applicable to floss drops on them, and then organized them into different kinds of groups: samplers, paintings and historic images, other kinds of stitching, and then tied them together with silk floss so that now they are in this nice little organized box ready for me to pull out. Side effect of this has actually been that I haven't wanted to put it away, because I think the box is so pretty, all the blues and the flowers. It's just very spring, and it's been hanging out on my desk as a lovely reminder of the incredible fun that was the floss drop trade. I do still have a few of my own if there is anybody out there who doesn't have some of mine and would like them. So with that, I think that's actually everything that I have for you today. The next time we have some updates on ongoing projects. I am headed to Britex next week to look for lining fabrics for the Marie Antoinette box. I do have some options in stash. I'll be showing them to you, and asking you what you think. So we'll be revisiting the Marie Antoinette smalls in their home, as well as a big whip that I have made significant progress on, and I'm very excited to share with you. So the tutorial on embellishing your cross stitch with silk wrapped gimp is going up next week. I'll be back with you on Flosstube in 2 weeks time, and until then, happy stitching.